What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with the recent news that the sprint out times aren't going to be changing in Call of Duty World War II, today I thought I'd share how to rush effectively in this game. I've seen a lot of people taking this way too far, saying that you absolutely can't rush in this game due to the sprint out times being slow. I've had a lot of people actually misquoting me as saying that it's like impossible to rush in this game. It absolutely is possible to rush. The definition of rushing has just changed with the way that this game works. Like I've said in the past, while I might disagree with the way that the sprint out times are in this game currently, that doesn't mean I haven't adapted, and today that's what I'm going to be sharing for you guys. How to adapt to this style of play so that you can still get around the map and be relatively aggressive with an SMG. The first thing I want to mention here, this is more of a mindset thing. You can no longer really rely on your reaction time while sprinting around in this game. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this, it's fairly obvious, but this is just due to the sprint out times, and that's something we just have to accept if we're going to be playing this game. So drop that idea. You can't just sprint around and rely on the fact that your reaction time and your aim is better than the enemy's reaction time and aim, because that's just going to get you killed in way too many situations. Next is understanding which SMGs are going to be excelling with sprint out time compared to the others. 3 out of the 7 SMGs have a 200 millisecond sprint out time, and the rest of them have a 250 millisecond sprint out time. And keep in mind, 250 milliseconds is the same as most of the rifles in this game, and therefore with 4 out of 7 SMGs, you may as well be running around with a rifle because you have that exact same sprint out time. So the 3 SMGs that actually have a faster sprint out time than the rifles are the PPSH, the Type 100, and the Waffe 28. If you want to be as aggressive as possible, those are your choices. That's not to say that you can't kind of use this playstyle with the other SMGs, it's just at that point, they're really no different than the rifles in this game. Next up is Quick Draw. I've had a lot of people saying, why would you use Quick Draw? Didn't you make that video saying Quick Draw is broken? And the fact of the matter is, Quick Draw is broken if you break your sprint by aiming down sight. And the reason behind this is your aim down sight time will be slowed to match your sprint out time if your sprint out time is greater than your aim down sight time, which it is when you have the Quick Draw attachment equipped. If, however, you break your sprint in any other way, you will still be taking advantage of Quick Draw. So what you do here is, as you're sprinting around the map, if you suspect you're about to run into an enemy, or you do run into an enemy, pull back on your left analog stick first. This will manually break your sprint, then aim down sight. This will allow you to snap on a target. Keep in mind though, you will still have to complete the sprint out time. It's just what you're doing is you're activating that sprint out time manually, and then you're aiming down sight manually, which allows you to snap on a target and take advantage of Quick Draw. I did mention this in a previous video, but I don't think it really caught on with a lot of people, so I thought I'd throw that in here. This is a very effective strategy. If you watch any of the pro players out there that play with SMGs, you will see them using this technique. It is the most effective technique we have if you're trying to be aggressive. The next tip I have for you guys is to sprint in bursts. Unless you're coming out of spawn, or it's an opening route, or you're just in an area of the map where you know you don't have any enemies and you're not going to be running into them, don't sprint for the full duration of your sprint time. So 4 seconds without airborne or 8 seconds with airborne. Instead, sprint for just a couple seconds at a time, maybe just getting across a little open area, something like that, and then walk your character while you regenerate your sprint again. What this does is it maximizes the odds that when you do run into an enemy, you won't be sprinting. Yes, you will still get situations since you are still activating sprint. You sometimes will still get caught sprinting. It's just going to happen a lot less often, while still getting you around the map significantly faster than just walking all the time. So just because you have that 4 or that 8 second of sprint time doesn't mean you have to use that 4 or 8 seconds of sprint time all at once. And piggybacking off this point, this brings me to the next point. Anytime you're coming around a corner where there's potentially going to be an enemy, always walk around that corner. Never sprint around the corner. Keep your centering up like you should even in previous games where you could sprint around that corner. Just stop yourself from sprinting, pull back on that left analog stick. You don't necessarily need to aim down sight with every corner and pre-aim every corner, although that can often be a good technique as well. If you have Quick Draw especially, as long as you're not sprinting and you're walking around that corner, you're ready to be able to snap on a target very, very quickly with Quick Draw equipped. Next up is another technique that you can use. I've mentioned this in the past. I actually made like a dedicated video to this. This has to do with Gunslinger. If you're using Gunslinger on your class, you can kind of sprint around aimlessly on some maps in some situations and use Gunslinger to your advantage. Just in case you weren't aware, Gunslinger eliminates your sprint out time, but only if you break your sprint by firing your gun. If you break your sprint by pulling back on the left analog stick, you still have to complete your sprint out time, even if you have Gunslinger. If you break your sprint by aiming down sight, you still have to let your sprint out time complete before you can fire your gun. So this definitely takes some practice and some adjusting to, and it really only works sometimes. But if you break your sprint by firing with Gunslinger, you can fire into aiming down sight as you're sprinting into an enemy. This works great in really close quarter situations, but as soon as you start getting to mid to somewhat longer ranges, this won't really work too well for you because your gun's already going to be going off. By the time you get fully aimed down sight, you're already dealing with the recoil that's already happened, and therefore you're likely to be off target. And in a lot of those situations, you would have been better off just not using Gunslinger and trying to snap on a target with the other technique. Now, the last tip I have for you guys has to do with the general map design as well as the way that the spawns work in this game. Now, keep in mind the Spawn Guide series is coming very soon, and this is where I'm going to go into great detail with the spawns and how they work, and this is going to help you so much with predicting enemies and being able to get around the map more aggressively. Until then, just know, with most of the maps in this game, of course there are a couple exceptions here or there, but with the majority of these maps, you can only sort of rush up to a certain point, and there really isn't much room to flank in a lot of situations. It's basically rush up to a certain point, gain that map control, win your gunfights towards the middle of the map, and then you probably don't want to push into their spawn. Now, the reason you usually don't want to push into their spawn is, first up, you might run into just a wall of enemies that are coming off spawn because enemies tend to spawn in a very concentrated area, and this will obviously just get you killed in a lot of situations. Or you'll run in there, you'll get a sick quad feed, you'll be able to kill those people as they come off the spawn, but then you flip spawns all the way over to the other side of the map, and now you have to reset yourself and move all the way back to the other side of the map. Sometimes that's a valid strategy and you can do that and that works just fine, but a lot of the times that's not the most effective way to rack up as many kills as possible. Unfortunately, with a lot of these maps, let's just use Gibraltar for instance, when you have them spawning on the top side of the map, your most effective strategy is to simply push up to this point and then just move around and be unpredictable without pushing into their spawn. It's kind of unfortunate that the game plays this way, but that's how it works with this game on most of the maps. You push up to a point and then you just kind of roam around, lock down the middle of the map, and be unpredictable. That is kind of the new rushing playstyle when it comes to these maps, at least for a lot of the game modes. Of course, it doesn't apply to every single game mode, but for a bunch of the game modes in the game, that's going to be your most effective strategy for maximizing kills. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's video. I really hope some of these tips will allow you guys to be more aggressive, get around that map a little bit more comfortably, while dealing with these slower sprint out times that we have in this game. If there's any tips that you have that I didn't include in this video to help you get around the map more aggressively, please let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.